when you pop up your terminal are shell. This describes the shell that will be interpreting any commands that you will be typing. This could its value could be like bin bash, pardon my spellings, or it could very well be bin, what is wrong? Let me just remove this one. So it could very well be bin shell, or it could be D shell. So whatever shell that we are going to use will be put in shell variable. Next we can have user, which will define that what current user is logged in. We can also have terminal, what terminal we are using, for example maybe X terminal. Then we can also see what will be the present working directory, what will be the colors that will be shown in that terminal, what is the mail path, which is normally where, then spool, and then mail, and then username, whatever is that. And an important variable is the path. This path defines that if we have got this path and it has got certain directories in there, then all the directories, then all the files in those directories will directly be accessible through the command prompt. And I'll show you what does I mean by that. We can also see the home directory variable in the environment settings. Depending upon our requirement, we can create our own environment variables, and it's pretty simple to do that. We simply type in, let's say maybe we want to create a variable by the name of variable 1, and we want to assign it a value of let's say maybe give it a name of let's just call the value as test variable. So we can write it inverted commas test variable. So once we do that, this variable gets created, and we can get its value if we want to see that whether this has been created or not by using the command which is export, then $, and then the variable name. Once we do that, we should ideally be seeing that this test variable value, which is the value against variable 1, should be printed on the line. Now let's head over to the terminal and see what are the environment variables and how we can create one and set for our particular needs. So here we are, I'm using Ubuntu distribution. If I type in uname -a, we can see that I'm using Ubuntu distribution, which is Debian based. And if I type in env, which is short for environment, and I press enter, then we see that at the moment these are the environment variables that are presented to me. For example, this is the terminal type, which is xterm, the shell that has been given, which is bash. And since I am logged in remotely into this machine, this is also saying that SSH client, this is the IP address of my machine, and the username that I'm logged in with is Ahmed. This is the mail folder, which is var mail Ahmed. This is the path, and look at this one. These are all the path variables at the moment where we have put in executable files. So user local sbin, bin, user bin, and so on and so forth. Now if I've got an executable file and I put it in one of these folder locations, and if I want to execute it, it will get executed. But if I put in a different path which is not mentioned over here, then although that file will be executable, I will not be able to execute that file from a place which is not the absolute path. So if I let me just show you, let me just go through with this settings, and this is the present working directory that I am in at the moment. This is my home directory, and these are the time settings, and also we can see that these are the color settings that I wanted to show you about. So The important ones are the shell, the path. Most of the time we are concerned with the path because that is mostly used. And if you have installed Java or Oracle, then you also need to set their specific paths if you want to execute certain commands in your environment variables. So let's say where I'm at the moment. I'm in my home directory. Let's create a file by typing in, let's say, touch, and let's just call it simple. And let's change the type of this file. At the moment, this is just a regular file. If I show you the contents, it's just a regular file, and I want to make it an executable file. So I can do that by typing in change mode plus X and then the name of the file. Now once I do that, we see that its color has somehow a little bit changed. You see it's a bit changed. It looks a bit brighter than this one. So I can execute this file now, and let's just also put something in there. Let's just get into this file and type in maybe ls. So as soon as we execute this file, it will show us the contents of that particular directory where we executed. So now I can execute this file by typing in ./simple, and where I am at the moment. Okay, so I need to make it a script, and I can do that. We'll see about scripting later, but let me just go with this one at the moment. So I type in bin shell, and after that ls. Let's save the settings, and now if I do simple, it should execute ls command, which it does. So now the file has been created. Now if I go out, I'm at the moment at a place where that file is created. If I get out from here, let's say now I'm in home directory, and we see there is no simple file in here. Now if I do, let's say, simple, or I try to type simple, which is an executable file, or maybe simple, we see that it says that it cannot find the file. Now the file is not found, although it is there in the directory, but it's not found because it is not in the environment variable path. So if I have a look at the path value that I had shown you earlier, we see that there is no, or rather I should type in echo and path. So this is the path value. Now what I can do is that I can put my home directory where I created that sample file in here, and once I do that, I'll be able to execute this simple command from anywhere. One of the option is that I put this file or copy this file into one of these directories, but the other way is that I can create my own, or I can put in my own directory path in here. Now we can do that by typing in, let's say, path is equal to, and then the path that I want to include, let's just say ahmad, and then full colon, and afterwards I can copy this whole string. I can either copy this whole string, or I can simply type in dollar path, so that already whatever is the path value, it should be appended to this value. Now once I do that, it should be set, and now if I do an echo of the path, we see that home Ahmed has been added. Also, when you are setting the environment variables, try to export them as well, so that if you execute some command and it has got some child processes, they should be executed and should take on the values that have been put into that environment variable. If we sometimes did not export the environment variables, what happens is that some of the commands which have got certain child processes, they do not behave properly. So it's a good practice that we export the environment variables as well. So once we do that, and if I do again echo, the home Ahmed path is there. Now you see I'm still in home folder. If I do a pwd, and if I do ls, there is no simple command or the script that we had written over. So now if I type in simple, I should be able to execute that command, although I'm not in that particular directory, but we should be able to do it. And simple said that do a simple ls, which it did. So that's just a small way that you can configure your path variables to make certain programs work. We can also remove variable values by typing in, let's say we want to unset whatever we have set now. So I can type in unset path, and now if I try to have a look at the value of this path variable by typing in echo and path, we see that now it returns nothing. So in fact, now I should not be able to run simple command. You see, I cannot do that. I cannot do ls, I cannot do pwd, or right, pwd is working. Let's say if we have find command. So you see, most of the commands which were defined by these path values or environment variables, since this has been removed, so we cannot use any of these commands. Although commands are in there, like if I give it the absolute path, which is bin and let's say ls, or it is, what are the, maybe it is in sbin. So if I type in sbin and ls, or bin ls, so the command is there, command is not removed, but since variable has been removed, so we cannot use it. Now to bring it back, I can simply close this terminal and open it again, open the session with this machine again, and we'll have those variables with us. So let's just do that. Let's type in the password and let's do the path. Have a look at the path variable again. So it has come back up. Now you see that as soon as I closed the terminal and came back in, these settings have been reverted back to our default. So how these settings, how does it come at the initial level? Where are those settings are saved, and how our terminal gets those settings? Well, let me just come to this slide. In case if we log into a system, so we get a login shell, then login shell variables are normally stored in our home directory files, which could be bash underscore profile. It could have been bash underscore login, or these settings might be stored in dot profile. Depends on which distribution we are working and what are these settings that have been put in etc slash profile file. So these three files, if any of them is there, if let's say this file is there, then we can change the settings of these environment variables in this file, and also the settings that are taken at the time of when a user gets logged in. This is the template that is used to create that environment variable. So if we change the settings in there, they are kind of permanently saved. Unlike the case that I had shown you, that if we use export and then value, it gets erased or set to its default values using this file as soon as we close the terminal. But if we set these settings over in any of these files, they stick permanently. Now this is only for if we log into a machine, like maybe using a telnet protocol or maybe SSH protocol. But if we do not do that, like maybe we have got a GUI opened up and we just open a terminal, since we did not have to log in into it, so that is not called as a login terminal, it's called as non-login terminal. In case of non-login terminal, our settings are normally stored in our home folder again, but in .bash rc file. So now let's head over to the terminal and see that how we can set a variable permanently using one of these files. So here we are at the terminal, and let's just head over to our home directory. And if I do a pwd over here and do an ls -a, so that it also shows us all the files whether they are hidden or not. we see that we have this file which is .bash rc. So let's get into this file .bash rc, and you see this is saying that .bash rc it is for non-login shells. So if I bring it down over here, maybe on this place, and I type in, let's say, export, and let's define a variable by the name of variable 1 and give it a value of let's say test variable, and save the file and exit it. Now once I will open up the terminal, a non-login terminal, then my environment variable will show it this value in the environment variables path. At the moment it will not show it because I have not logged back in, or I should not say it logged back in, I should say that open up the terminal again. But there is another way to do that. There is another way to read that file and enforce that variable, and that way is using the command source and then the file name, which is bash rc. Now once I do that and I press environment or type in environment, and if I bring it, or maybe scroll down, now over here we see that this is the variable that we have set in. Now this is set permanently, no matter how, if I log out or even turn off the machine and turn back it up again, since it is in that file, it will stick around permanently unless I change it. Also if I do export, that show me the value of, or rather I should say echo, and the name of the variable, which is var1, that shows the value of this variable. We see that it's a test variable. If I get logged out and try to come back in by putting in the username and password and do an environment again, we see that this variable is still here.